This is the Zenfone 6 everyone is talking about in 2019, and this is the Zenfone 6 nobody knew existed back in 2014. Yep, Asus decided to restart the Zenfone range for some reason. So in this 5-year gap, how much has phones changed? Quite a lot actually. Let's start with the size. 6-inch screens are becoming common, but back in 2014 it wasn't. Samsung's Galaxy Note 3 released at a similar time was only at 5.7 inches, and people were complaining its ginormous size. Then, when you take the thick bezels into account, this piece of hardware is beyond massive for my hands, even bigger than a Note 10 Plus in all 3 dimensions. If it was almost bezel-less like today's phone, this screen could be stretching up to 7 inches. That's almost tablet territory, which is why everyone is trying to eliminate them, and why notches, punch holes, and flip cameras exist. Speaking of camera, they have come a long way just like phones' designs. We never needed more than one main camera because people's expectation in photo quality wasn't as demanding as today. Nowadays, manufacturers even need to consider their placement for aesthetic and performance purposes. Bumps were never a thing either until people begin to have expectations in phones' thickness. We no longer see backfiring speakers because of projection issue, but volume in this one is super high, so it makes up for the compromise. Removable back is also a thing of the past, but this one decides to be ahead of its time and sealed the battery into the chassis. IPS LCD display may be old technology, but is still being used on the current Zenfone 6 and other unreasonably expensive devices. However, this display has really poor viewing angle and is showing signs of degradation. Intel CPUs simply didn't stay around long enough to be remembered. All I can say is that it can still handle typical media just fine and could tolerate on some serious gaming, though the choices aren't really diverse on Google Store. It's surprising that 4.4.2 KitKat is still being supported today, but the experience is unpleasant, with apps freezing up from time to time. Then the heavily skinned Zen UI looks very busy and slow. Bloatwares are everywhere, and the system navigation is an absolute pain. It's a far cry from today's Android world where everything is super intuitive. So it's good to see most OEMs are leaning towards stock Android. This phone may seem unremarkable, but Asus used to be very ambitious with wild ideas. Remember the pad phone? The phone and tablet hybrid? Yep, that's how creative they had been. They have been very quiet for a while, but it looks like they're back on their innovation game once again.